Now, I could not stand to see a 6-foot-high picture of myself behind myself here, so I thought I would just use a depiction of me doing choralography. Bob is very glad that I'm 6 feet tall and I don't have to be in the front row. Oh, thank you. I tried really hard to find that. I am a retired therapist. I'm a professional educator on trans issues, but that's not all I bring to the table today. I've done many presentations like this, but I'm the only person who's ever sung in all 4 GALA choruses the state of Oregon has produced. Thank you. I sang 11 years in the Portland Lesbian Choir as a founding member, 14 years combined in 2 mixed choruses, 5 years and counting in the Portland Gay Men's Chorus. So that's 27 years of singing in GALA choruses, and that actually is me, 12 years ago. So thanks for coming. You've used your own money, vacation time to participate in the symposium, and I've traveled at my own expense too, but I wanted to give something back. I've spent 27 years being fed by being in one GALA chorus or another, and now what I'm giving back is 12 years professional experience in this arena. This is the first time these 2 parts of my life have ever intersected, and so I'm really honored to be here today. For that, I have to be really general in my approach today. Usually when I do these kinds of presentations, it's for people who all live in a specific place, and I can talk about that location, the resources they have available locally, the things that I might know about the population they'd be serving, but I can't really do that today, so this will be very general. So the suggestions that I offer, you'll have to tailor when you take them back to your own chorus in your own city, because what works in Kansas City might not work in Seattle and vice versa. So, time is limited for this workshop. We're doing an overture on each of these topics. They could each be Wagnerian in length, so you just have to bear that in mind. So what we're going to cover today are forms of identity. What does trans look like? What doesn't it look like? And what kinds of ways that trans people participate in GALA choruses. And I'm going to talk about the voice. And I mean that on several levels. There's the practical voice, there's the practicalities of helping someone whose voice is changing in transition, but there's a deeper level involved here. And this is an area in which gay and lesbian and bi identities might not intersect with trans identities, and that's a fear that the voice won't be good enough, that it might out the person as being trans in some way. So I'm going to talk a bit about supporting people at that level, because that's maybe not an experience that you've had personally. And gender is deeply personal. It's sometimes awkward to talk about this sort of stuff, so let's take it as a given so that we can all talk freely as we go forward today. Feel free to ask the questions you might have been hesitant to ask in other venues. Many people hesitate to ask because it seems politically incorrect or something like that, but this isn't about politics. This is about personal issues. And I know it tends to be billed as a political thing, GLBT, but this is very personal when people sing and use their voice in a group setting, and it really touches something deeply personal in people when they do that. Now let's talk about the different forms of identity we're talking about today. Okay, GLBTQQISA, ... because there are things being added to that list all the time. And I'm not even going to talk about a lot of these today, but I don't want to leave anyone out. That's my lesbian community background. As an aside, the Portland Lesbian Choir once commissioned a song. This was many years ago, 1996, sang it at Tampa Gala. One of the lines in that song was, "We will stay until we rot before we leave somebody out." So that's why I put that slide in there. Now, gay, lesbian, bisexual, any of you who've spent any time within these communities, you know it may seem like there's absolutely nothing that these communities have in common, but there is a common denominator here, and that is they all describe a form of sexual orientation. And we all know what this is about. It's about your attractions to other people, your relationships to other people, the community affiliation you claim as your own. So now we're going to reflect on something that we probably all spent a lot of time thinking about at some other point in our lives. So you're not going to probably have to spend a lot of time on this one. It might take each of you 10 seconds to find your place on that scale, because at some time or another in your lives, you had to do that work already. So I'm not going to give you a lot of time to do that. I just wanted to plant the seed that we're talking about sexuality here. So now we're going to talk a bit about the T. What is that about? Because you can't find your gender on the Kinsey scale. All you can find is the people you find attractive. It says nothing about whether you feel okay about being a man or a woman. So that's the Kinsey scale. This is about the T. You get up in the morning, you look in the mirror, you're alone. You see something reflected back to you that other people say is a man or a woman. How okay are you with that? That's an exploration of your gender identity. And as you can see, that tells you nothing about who the person in that picture is attracted to. And that's the difference between sexual orientation and gender identity when you start teasing them apart as forms of identity. They're not really related to each other. Okay. So trans, that's about you on your own. Trans, gender identity is not sexual orientation. Trans people have a sexual orientation too, so a trans person can identify as a lesbian, can identify as gay, can identify as straight. This may seem intuitive to you all, but believe me, I've done many presentations where there are people looking puzzled until I explain all this, and then I can see the light bulb go on and they say, oh, now that makes a lot of sense. Now I understand better than I did before. The partner of a trans person has a sexual orientation too, and this is where things really start to get confusing for a lot of folks. What do you say about the person who started out life as a male, tried everything they could to fit in as a man, and that included getting married and having kids, married to a woman, mind you, living a very traditional life, and then they wake up at 45 or so and they realize, I still feel the same way I did when I was 5. They tried everything they could to become happy being men. They transition anyway. Does that make their partner automatically a lesbian? What do you think? Would you think it would have? Right. She married a man way back when. She's presumably been reasonably content married to a man. It doesn't make the trans woman automatically a lesbian either. And I've met couples who look like lesbian couples to other people, but they don't identify as lesbians. It gets really confusing. What do you do with the situation of a trans man, someone who transitions to male, who started out involved with someone as part of lesbian community? He transitions, they look like a straight couple. Does that make the partner straight? This is someone who did a lot of soul searching, like you all have at an earlier time in life, and realized, I'm a lesbian. Whoa, my partner's transitioning to male. Well, if they don't leave that relationship, they have to come to terms with that in some way. But if you think about it, all those labels, lesbian, gay, straight, to some extent bisexual, they all kind of depend on both partners not being trans. Because when you start to apply them to trans people, it gets really confusing for everybody concerned. So what's the common denominator here then? All these different terminologies, they all describe a particular form of gender identity. Now I highlighted these in particular. I have a glossary sheet here because the description of this workshop said I was going to talk about terminology, so I guess I'm going to talk about terminology a little bit. This is my definitions of different things. If you ask someone else who's trans, they might say something completely different. Don't think it's not you. Don't think it's you not getting it. We are saying different things in all likelihood. This is a community of people that have had to come to some sense of what it all means and make sense of it all to their own satisfaction. But in doing that, where did I leave my script? But in coming to make sense of it all, they come to different definitions of things. But I want to highlight these 4 terms in particular because if you really understand these terms and can use them correctly, it goes a long way toward establishing credibility when you start talking with people who are trans. A mistake that I often hear people make is misunderstanding trans man and trans woman and using them opposite to their actual definitions. A trans man is someone who transitions to male. And it's amazing how many people don't get that. They think trans man is the person who started out as a man. And if you start talking like that among trans people, you shoot yourself in the foot because then they're not going to really take anything seriously that you have to say because they'll think you don't know anything. So understanding trans man and trans woman and which direction that means is really a crucial thing. Genderqueer is a relatively new term. It's come on the scene in the past 6 or 7 years. And it's kind of a catch-all term within gay lesbian community. Queer is the appropriate analogy. The person who doesn't want a specific box. Genderqueer is the person who doesn't want a specific box around gender. It's a fluid form of identity. It frees people up to date whoever they want, to express gender however they want, without feeling pigeonholed into the boxes female or male. I have, as I said, I used to be a therapist. I've worked with a number of people who were cross-dressers who were older. These were people who lived a straight male life, but there was part of their personality that couldn't really get expression unless they were dressed female. And they called themselves cross-dressers, so it was usually specific to a certain social context. They would want to go out dressed to the nines as women, often with their wives and with their wives' support. And one of them said an interesting thing to me one day. She said, if I was 30 years younger, I would be calling myself genderqueer. So I think what we're seeing is a younger generation of a similar kind of thing that has always been around. But back in the day when gender was so polarized, you didn't find people playing around with gender the way they seem to now. It's a generational difference. I'm 58, so I don't come from that generation where people played around with gender a whole lot, not when I was that age in my 20s. Cisgender is a lovely word. It came on the scene 4 or 5 years ago now. It is the companion term to transgender, and you will hear trans people use this word a lot. So understanding what it means is critical. It basically describes all of you all's experience, and I'm assuming you're not trans. If you are, it doesn't really apply to you. But if you're not, that's your word. Trans is a Latin prefix that means to move in some way, transit, you're moving somewhere. CIS is the Latin prefix that means to stay in the same place. Cistern, capturing water in one location. So cisgender is the companion word that describes the experience of the person who doesn't feel the need to change the gender that is on their birth certificate. And it's a great word because before this word was invented, and I don't know who to give credit to, I wish I did because I would, you had transgender and then you had man, woman, and normal. There wasn't a word that put everybody on the same continuum until this word came on the scene. So now we have another personal reflection, and that's the gender Gumby. Now this one you might find a little more challenging personally, not making you uncomfortable necessarily, but maybe a little hard to figure out where you fall on these different scales, and there's a reason for that. I have a friend who has a 22-year-old trans daughter, used to be her son, and my friend says of her former son, from the age of 18 months we thought we were raising a gay male child because we couldn't keep her out of my makeup and wardrobe. Now it could have been gay male, but turned out to be trans. 18 months, though, that's my point. I don't think that's unique to her. I think every toddler is playing with gender and gender roles and their identity at that age. And that same child at 5 said to mom, am I a girl and you're just not telling me? That's a pretty clear statement of identity. But I think if you ask any 5-year-old child, are you a boy or a girl? They know the answer from personal experience of identity. And if they're genderqueer, they might be confused about, well, they might say, well, I'm not really sure. But the point is they know something about their gender. But if you ask them, are you straight or gay? They won't even understand the question at that age. And I'm sure everyone in this room, you probably remember the first time you realized you were in love with someone. It's like, oh my God, now I know what that is. Now I know. Well, that happens during adolescence. You can think about it. You can remember it. But it's hard to remember the emergence of your gender because it happens so young. So you might find some of this a little challenging to dredge up the memories. It's not because you're not trans. It's because it's hard to dredge up the memories. Probably half the people I ever worked with, and I fall in this category too, I did not understand my identity till I was 39. That's why I spent so many years in the Portland Lesbian Choir. I just always thought, and some of this may resonate with some of you, I felt different, I didn't fit in, I didn't understand why. I thought I understood why at 19 when I fell in love with a woman. That turned out not to be the reason, but I didn't figure that out for another 20 years. So there are trans people who have a hard time filling this out also. But I give it to you as a way of trying to do some of the same exploration that trans people have to do on their journey to figure out, how do I want to live my life? And I really think everybody should be asking themselves these kinds of questions. And on your other page with the Kinsey scale, there's a gender comfort scale. And that's kind of my attempt to create something that's an equivalent to the Kinsey scale, but for gender. So it's got 100% at both ends of the spectrum. You're either 100% comfortable or 100% uncomfortable with a gender assignment on your birth certificate. That friend of mine, 22 years old, saying to mom at 5, that's the 100% uncomfortable. And there's a lot of people in the middle. The people who felt different at a young age and couldn't quite pinpoint it. I don't think the feeling was quite strong enough when I was a child for me to be able to say, oh, this is about being a girl. I just knew I didn't fit in with the girls, but I fit in fine with the boys as a tomboy. It all gets very confusing when you're a kid, if you're in that situation. And if I'm going fast, I apologize, but like I said, not a lot of time here. Now, what does trans look like? And I invite you to look at these pictures. I don't know if you can see them real well. Yeah, you got, well, no, Mrs. Doubtfire. Yes, that's one of them. But the one on the upper left, I don't know if you can see her very well. What do you, no. But I invite you, because these are not necessarily all trans people, so we're going to play like a little game here. How can we pick out who's who? So what do you think about the top left there? Cisgender woman, trans woman, what do you think? Okay, let's see. Yep, trans woman. How about the one in the middle on the top there? She's got red hair, but I don't know if you can see that too well. Any ideas? Yes? Is that what you said? That's good. Well, she's a drag queen. What about the one on the upper right there? Lesbian. You got it. There's gaydar at work, huh? A cisgender lesbian, yeah.
It still works.
How about the bottom left there? What do you think? Oh, wow, you're good. How many of you recognized him? He's a friend of mine. I know him. And how about, oh, Mrs. Doubtfire. We already heard the answer to that one. So that's an example of a cisgender straight man dressing as a woman. Probably took many hours with a lot of help to do it, but he did it. And Tootsie also. And a lot of trans women have taken encouragement from the fact that if Robin Williams and Dustin Hoffman can do it, oh, maybe I can too. How about that guy next to her? Yep. Yep. Cisgender gay man. How about the bottom right there? What do you think? Straight. Gotcha. So that's what trans looks like. Looks like everybody else for the most part. Trans, with the asterisk, is another term that I actually should have put on my sheet there, but I haven't yet. It's relatively new. And that's a new term that just basically means trans with whatever you're going to fill in that blank with behind it. The asterisk is fill in the blank. Yep. And the person in the middle is a genderqueer guy who ended up deciding, yes, I do want to take hormones. Yes, I do want to have chest surgery. If people call me she on occasion, I don't mind at all, because that's my heritage, and there's a strong part of me that still resonates with that. And on the top right there is someone who considers himself transgender. He's taken hormones and had surgery, but he wouldn't say totally, I'm just a guy now, just a man. In fact, I don't know very many trans men who take that stance. So the face of trans in the chorus. There's several possibilities here. You may have somebody who's joining the chorus when they're long into transition, and all of these people are long into transition. They may be visible or invisible as they join. The person on the left there is going to have a hard time anywhere she goes being seen as a woman. It's not because she's early in transition. Now, I've worked with a lot of people, met a lot of trans people over the course of my career here. I'd say 15 to 20% of the trans women I've worked with fall in this category. The other 75 to 80, 90, 85% fall in the category of the one in the middle there, where possibly a few trans people, if they're looking really hard and know what they're looking for, might spot her, probably not. And I don't think very many cisgender people would spot her at all. So this is the kind of person who may join your chorus and you have no idea. And the trans guy, it's very unusual for a trans man, maybe 3 or 4 years into transition, to easily be spotted by people as being trans. He has to kind of come out if he wants to be out. So you may have someone long into transition join your chorus. You may have someone join when they are early in transition. And we've had that happen in the chorus. These are people looking for a new home. And they haven't wanted to wait until they're invisible in transition before they try to find it. It's a hard row to hoe, because then sometimes their gender is mistaken in their chorus experience when they first joined a new group. But I think the hardest of all is when you transition as a current member of a chorus. That's a very difficult one, because you have found a chorus home. Now, in my case, I had to leave the Portland Lesbian Choir. Not because they rejected me as individuals, they were very sad to see me go. That was quite a difficult process. I'd been there for 11 years, and I wasn't planning on leaving. But that wasn't my tribe anymore. So you're not going to find a trans man go through transition and stay in a lesbian chorus. It's the wrong fit, aside from the voice. One of my chorus mates that I stood next to for years, she said, well, can't you just transition anyway and we just won't tell anyone? And I just said, Jenny, it doesn't work that way. But she was really upset that I was leaving. Not that I was transitioning. She was happy for me as a person. She was sad to be losing someone from the chorus. I also transitioned as a member of a mixed chorus. I went from alto to bass. The director said, how do I support you? I said, don't make me re-audition. And she didn't. So it was still a difficult situation. Did I fit in as a bass? All of a sudden, I'm not standing over here with these folks. I'm standing over here with these folks. Now, this is a friend of mine who gave me permission to use her photo. She's 15 years into transition. And this is what she says about her voice. So she's not going to join a chorus anytime soon. And it's too bad because she really is a very outgoing person. She loves to sing. But I have a feeling the shower drops are the only things that hear her sing. I just don't think she sings in public at all. Her speaking voice, you would never know that she'd ever been male from her speaking voice. Here's what a trans man had to say. So it's unfortunate because what I was going to play for you, I don't know how many of you have heard a CD called Wintertide, but Heather Alexander has been a recording artist within the pagan Wiccan tradition for probably 20 years, and then transitioned and became Alexander Adams, and recorded a CD about 6 years ago that features a number of duets between Heather, the former female self, and Alexander. And it's so cool to listen to the voice change and realize this is the same person. Beautiful, beautiful singing. So I highly recommend that, and I'm sure you can YouTube it or something like that. I wish this would play, but Wintertide is the name of the CD, yeah. And the recording artist, you could probably find it either under Heather Alexander or Alexander Adams. Yeah, and this is someone who kept his performing career because within that tradition he didn't receive a whole lot of flack and in fact received a lot of admiration, like good on you for being true to yourself. So I want to talk a bit about GALA. This is the mission statement of GALA choruses. So we are empowering LGBT choruses as we change our world through song. Now GALA also has, and here I will read for you a little bit, GALA has certain core values. Being catalyst is one of them. And what they say about catalysts is we provide enthusiasm, resources, and tools to inspire our member choruses to use the power of music to create social change. Now for the singers, the power of music, I think, is the key phrase in that core value. GALA is also harmonizers. We are diverse people who employ the power of song with respect and understanding. We bring our communities together to experience musical excellence, collaboration, cooperation, acceptance, transparency, and opportunities for all. And I believe the power of song is the key phrase that the singers resonate with in that. Now, these are what I resonate with, so I'm putting that all on you. There may be other phrases in there that are equally important to you. The next thing that we all are listeners. We listen to our members, our colleagues, and each other in order to understand the issues, define our roles, and serve the common welfare of our movement. And I think listen to our members is what the singers take away from that. We all feel a part of this organization, but we want to feel that it represents us too. And the final value that GALA represents is that we are leaders. And here I put a question mark after leaders because I wasn't sure how to apply this on a personal level. We offer strategic direction to the movement we serve. We work effectively with partners around the world who seek to achieve complementary goals. We strengthen our association by nurturing effective leadership and ensuring robust, sustainable financial resources. Now that's a pretty broad perspective that takes it away from the personal membership in GALA. But I think there's one thing that trans singers would take pause at a little bit, and it's the phrase, our movement. We offer strategic direction to our movement. And because gender is a different form of identity than sexual orientation, the goals that gay and lesbian folks have are not always in alignment with the goals trans people have. For example, if you're looking at a trans person who identifies as straight, they can be allies in a quest for marriage equality, but it doesn't necessarily apply to them personally. Now this gets a little much into the realm of trans identity because there's some states where it would. There are some states where transition is not recognized, and so this couple would still be seen as same-sex, something like that. So that can play out, but in general, you're not going to find them owning marriage equality as an issue that is theirs personally. On the other hand, how many of you would own the desire to pass legislation so that you no longer have to have surgery to change different kinds of gender on your identity, on your documentation? That's a trans issue. So there's certain overlaps. We have a lot of common enemies, but we also have certain goals that are specific to each of our communities. Yeah?
Using that as a tangent back to your alphabet.
Yes.
Jenny, my sense is I feel like we have contributed to the confusion of this issue by that continually expanding alphabet. Because we've married trans issues with sexual orientation issues, and so the vast majority of the public thinks it's the same.
I absolutely agree. I was in the late 1970s, I think that was before you moved to Portland, but there was a big movement there, a big push, and it may have happened in other parts of the country too, to stop calling it gay pride and have it be lesbian and gay pride. Yes. And then there was the bisexual piece, which never really did get fully incorporated under the umbrella, but at least those are all talking about the same kind of thing. Tacking the T onto that acronym without really understanding those differences leads to it reinforces that exact same kind of confusion. I totally agree with that. We do have some common enemies and some common goals, but it's more in the realm of politics. Basic Rights Oregon is a wonderful organization that works for marriage equality and things like that, and works for trans stuff too. They're really very on board with that. Politically, it makes a lot of sense. When you try to start bringing it all together socially, it really starts to fall apart. And my partner said, I should ask you all the question, why do we do it then? Right. Exactly. And she said that's so lesbian. She did.
We specifically do not use, at least in our mission, the alphabet. We use gay community. Because why are we there to be spokesmen for the trans community? And it's not a matter, I mean, you know, of course, we have women, straight men, trans folk. So it's not a matter of inclusion, but it is sort of our core focus is stick just to gay.
I totally, and that's something I'm going to get to a little bit later, is that and I am skipping ahead a little bit in my presentation here, but that's fine. If you have a gay organization or a lesbian organization, that is the ethos of that group. And it isn't the purpose of any trans person trying to plug into a chorus to change it. They want to sing. They want to belong. They just don't want their trans identity to get in the way of that. And that actually does segue quite nicely into this little exercise I have for you. And I created 5 of these, but I don't think we really need to use all of these. In fact, we could just talk about them because we are a little group here. So I'm going to read you some vignettes, and you can see what you think about these. Retreat is coming up for a mixed chorus. In preparation for a no-talent show, several members put together a drag number to entertain their chorus. In an effort to be inclusive, they invite their trans chorus members, trans women and trans men, to participate in the drag number. What do you think about that? And as a preface, all of these vignettes are problematic when it comes to trans people.
Yeah, the obvious conflict there is we have a trans man, for example, who, you know, they're going to do drag, which means that they'll be dressing as a woman, and that's the one thing that they've been rejecting their whole life, and it can be very traumatic to have to be in that position, or just to have to make that decision, or have to explain why that's not appropriate for me.
Yeah.
You know, that's a painful thing.
And it kind of brings up the thought, well, is this chorus new to having trans people? Did this trans guy just join and he's the first one, so they've never thought about it? But yeah, that's exactly right, because it's really saying, okay, we don't care that you just transitioned to male, you're trans, therefore this should be okay for you because it's some form of drag. And for the trans women, it's a problem because drag is performance of gender. And trans women will say things like, this is not about the clothes, this is about who I am. And yet, to them, it's still a trigger to be asked to do a drag number because they associate drag queen with being a gay man. And for them, it's not a short leap to see, truthfully or not, it's not a short leap for them to think, this means you don't see me as a woman. So it's an effort to be inclusive, but it backfires. And it's just a matter of having these kinds of discussions as a larger group and really doing that work to see it from their perspective. That really is all it's about. Here's another question for you. And by the way, these are all true stories. A trans woman many years into transition has been happily singing in a lesbian chorus for a number of years. No one knows she's trans. At the beginning of a chorus term, a new member comes in who is visibly trans. At some point when this new member leaves the room, she overhears remarks such as, "Has she had the surgery? She's been raised with all this male privilege. How can she really be a woman? I don't know, seems to me once a man, always a man." I know we're...
That's where it's coming from. I mean,
Yeah, and the sad part about that is there's no real great solution to that because now her feeling of having found a home has been sabotaged. And all unknowingly, unwittingly, not at all intended. But that is the result.
The solution is that we don't gossip about women.
Well, good luck with that one. That's an ideal solution for anything, really, because people gossip about each other all the time.
Well, we have the same issue in a large course of where we assume because people are gay or gay identified or gay friendly that we're all Democrats. And, you know, and
Yeah.
there were some people.
That's an excellent analogy. That's an excellent analogy. Yeah.
It's not fair.
Yeah, and that's true in our chorus as well. And hypothetically, we don't talk about political issues, but there is that assumption in the room. We all agree on every political issue. Yeah, that's a really good analogy. Well, here's another one. A trans man joins a men's chorus, coming out as trans when he's introduced to the group. He's been taking hormones for quite some time, and his voice is settled to baritone, but he hasn't yet saved the money for chest surgery. He wears a tight binder that allows him to have a flat chest, but makes it hard to sing. At some point, he experiments, doesn't wear the binder to rehearsal to see if it helps him sing better. He finds that suddenly other choristers are slipping on pronouns and calling him she. And I have to say, this happened in my chorus.
just because, and it hadn't been before then? Okay, that sounds like they were being rude. It sounds personal.
I don't think it was. It really speaks to the power of the visible and visual that we see, and we do autopilot pronouns on people everywhere we go. It is.
I have a youth group, so people are transitioning during their time. They start at 12 or 13,
Yeah.
and they're 18 or 20 when they leave. So their transition.
And their voices changing.
Everything is happening,
Mhm.
and their names are changing. They're changing their sexual identity.
Uh-huh. And it's great, but you get used to going with the flow.
And you talk about it all the time.
Uh-huh.
It's very open and it's very relaxed, and people say, "Excuse me," and we have, preferred pronouns, and
Mm-hmm.
but people make mistakes.
Yeah. Even the trans people make mistakes. Yeah, this is not something that trans people are immune to at all. Not at all.
It's weird, though, that they would, when they see that person's face in your chorus, that they didn't say he, just automatically.
It was the breasts. It gave them a cue. It gave them a visual cue, and it's an autopilot. It's unconscious. It's not. I don't think it was deliberate at all. I really don't. Well, especially when you're in a room surrounded by cisgender men and you see one person who has breasts. Okay, that's different from the rest of us, she. And that's where it was coming from. But yeah, I agree it wasn't rude because it wasn't deliberate. But, and this gets into the whole transition process, this person was probably still fairly early, because was still saving money for chest surgery. That's a time when everybody else in their lives are finding out what's going on too. So the chorus that experience becomes the microcosm of the whole rest of their lives, and that makes it more distressing than it might seem like it would be, oh, it's one incident, but it's one incident out of hundreds that happened probably that same day. So it's a difficult situation. Now here's another one. A chorus has reached out to various trans organizations in their city wanting to be inclusive. A number of trans people attend their first concert as part of this audience-building move. One trans woman, obviously trans, asks an usher where the bathrooms are, and the usher directs her to the men's bathroom. Now that's obviously, okay, we can all see wrong thing, but the problem there is that the chorus is reaching out to trans organizations without doing a lot of education within the organization, going all the way down to the random volunteer who's an usher for the first time. And what's going to happen next? That group's never coming back. Not only that, but if it's a particularly militant type of trans person who gets in your face when the least thing happens, this is going to be all over the gay press, and it's really going to do the chorus damage. So it's a difficult thing when you want to be inclusive and do the right thing. There's so many things to think about. What does that mean? Because that's another true story. That didn't happen in Portland. A trans man, long into transition, joins a gay men's chorus because they're good and he loves to sing. He doesn't really want to come out as trans. He doesn't. One cisgender gay man expresses confusion when Jason's female partner comes to retreat with him, attending the no talent show with all the other chorus widows. He says to Jason, the trans guy, "But we're all gay here. Why does your partner want to come?" And Jason believes he hears unspoken subtext in the question, "Why are you in the chorus since you're straight?" And it really gets into that confusion I talked about earlier about the labels that we put on sexual orientation, because he actually identifies as queer. He transitioned out of lesbian community. His partner still identifies as a lesbian. And she's had to come to terms with that, being seen as a straight woman. They're new to the city. No, she can't plug into lesbian community anymore, basically. She can't. She has a male partner. She would at the least be seen as bisexual. And then how can she join a lesbian anything and out him as trans if he doesn't want to come out? So it really raises lots of issues. There's a lot to unpack there. Yeah, Bob.
This is always just such a fascinating conversation for me and in our own group. I feel like gender, visible gender is for some still the most important thing. And we're the Portland Gay Men's Chorus, and from day one they wrote in a non-discrimination clause. People are auditioned according to their range. We don't know what their sexual orientation is. We don't care what gender they are. But the only thing that really gets the hackles up of some of the guys in the chorus is a woman. A cisgender, use it for the first time there, woman, especially if she's straight, which we have 3 of in our first tenor section. And that is that infuriates so many gay men. And it's sort of like, some of us had this discussion, it's sort of like, well, if that woman's a lesbian, then it's a little better, or if it's a trans man, all sorts of little hierarchy of who is acceptable. But the one which goes back to me, and my father always says, the core discrimination is against women. That's the root discrimination in the world is women. That still, so many gay men still have issues with women.
And I remember that the first time it happened when I joined, and one first tenor left in a huff, but he came back the next term, didn't he? Because no one followed him out the door. I mean,
Actually,
that was...
we followed out the door, but they all came back.
Yeah, they missed it too much. Yeah,
Well,
they got over
They don't really get over it, but the institution for so long has this as a value that we do not discriminate, because our mantra is you can't fight discrimination and practice it at the same time. So we audition according to range, and I do not let everybody in the chorus for a lot of reasons, but one of which is if they can't sing the range of our music, then they...
If they're a first soprano, they can't
Yeah.
sing in the chorus.
So,
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
But it really is that visible woman that really gets people's hands up.
But only some of them. And that's generational too, in my experience, yeah.
I have a question. With Joel brought up this story from our retreat, which I recall very clearly, and that was about my first season with the Seattle Men's Chorus. And I'm a cisgender straight woman, right, working in a community that is very different from my own experience, and so I find myself trying to be just as aware as I possibly can of everyone's experiences, since they're so different than mine, and trying really hard to be inclusive and trying really hard to use the right words. And so what Joel brought up is something I think about a lot, which is that our choruses are really gender defined. It's the Seattle Men's Chorus, it's the Seattle Women's Chorus. So what do you do, and how do you support those people that are gender queer? Because if we're trying, like, that's something that I struggle with all the time, is figuring out where their place is, and then also figuring out how to help them make connections within the chorus when we are are so clearly defined by gender. And so, I mean, that, I don't even know if I have a question. It's just like,
Well,
this
it's
is
a-
the thing that I'm always thinking about.
That's a microcosm of the entire culture.
Yeah.
Everywhere you go, any organization you're in, any workplace, any classroom, that same question will arise. What do you do if you really start looking at gender? It is everywhere. Everything is male, female. You can't get away from it. If you're genderqueer, you're trying to create a third place to be that doesn't exist in our culture.